Once upon a time, in a village, there lived a young woman named Obianuju. She was so beautiful, and she was the envy of most girls in the village. Many of them wanted to be like her, and the eligible bachelors in the village all wanted to have her as a wife. They always came bearing gifts to Obianuju in order to appease her and make her consider their requests to marry her. But she politely and calmly declined their offer. However, this didn't discourage them from approaching her. In fact, they put in more effort as they believed that she would have a change of heart. But Obianuju had eyes for only one man named Okenwa. He was envied by other men as they wondered what was so special about him that Obianuju piqued interest in him, but they could not place it. Okenwa was a wealthy trader in the village, and Obianuju loved him so much. They had been courting for a while, and soon after, Okenwa asked Obianuju to marry him. That was one of the happiest days of her life, and she was soon to be the wife of Okenwa. She ran to break the news to her friends, and they both celebrated with her. Obianuju began making preparations for her forthcoming wedding ceremony. One fateful day, she went to visit her fiancé as usual, but Okenwa took his leave, saying that he needed to attend to a business urgently, so she decided to wait for his return. While waiting, she was overjoyed and began looking around, imagining herself as his wife already, when she stumbled on something really strange in his wardrobe. It was a small calabash pot filled with a red piece of cloth and other fetish items. She couldn't believe her eyes. "What am I seeing?" she asked herself. Obianuju was still trying to process what she had just seen when her fiancé walked in. "What are you looking for?" he questioned her in a harsh tone. She was startled but managed to ask Okenwa what the pot was for. He immediately became defensive and told her to stop prying into his business. She was to be married to this man in a few weeks, and she was just finding out that he indulged in diabolical practices, yet he hid it from her all this while. This was totally against her belief. It was then she realized that she had been wasting her time with Okenwa, and she took her leave immediately. Her friends were by her side to comfort her. They told her that it was better that she found out about the evil Okenwa did now, instead of finding out about it in marriage. She knew this, but the pain was too much for her to bear. From time to time, Okenwa came pleading with her not to cancel their marriage, as it would bring shame to both of them. He also revealed to her that it was his fetish practices that gave him his wealth, and he also used the diabolical powers to conquer his enemies. He said that if she got married to him, he would also protect her with those powers, so she had to accept him for who he was. She turned down his request because as a Christian, that was against her faith. Okenwa was also an active member in church, so it baffled her that he was simultaneously going to church and involving himself in diabolical practices. Okenwa soon realized that he couldn't get married to Obianuju, since all his efforts to persuade her proved abortive. He accepted defeat and decided to move on, so he asked her to give him a final goodbye hug. Obianuju was reluctant at first, but she told herself that it was just a harmless hug. She embraced Okenwa, and immediately she felt like something had taken over her. She almost fell to the ground, but she managed to hold herself together. It was a really strange feeling, but she didn't think much of it. She said her goodbye to Okenwa. He left and never came back again. The news of Obianuju's separation from Okenwa spread like wildfire across the village, and the eligible bachelors who always had eyes for her resumed going after her again to convince her to marry them. The first man to approach her was Azubike, one of the strongest warriors in the village. While he was trying to convince her that he would be the best person for her, he realized that her face had changed into that of a monster. The moment he saw the face of a beast, he took to his heels and screamed for his life. Obianuju jumped out of fear. Why is he running like he had just seen a ghost? She thought to herself. She couldn't place what went wrong. Azubike was so scared for his life that he made up his mind never to approach her again. On another occasion, while taking a stroll with her friends, Obianuju came across DK. He had wanted to always pay her a visit for a very long time, but he had been too busy with work. He approached her to tell her about his intentions of getting married to her, but before he was done talking, Obianuju's face once again changed into that of a beast. DK shouted, "She's a monster," and ran away. Obianuju and her friends were in shock. The friends looked at her but didn't see anything off about Obianuju. "Why did he call you a monster?" they asked curiously. But Obianuju had no answer. She also narrated to them her ordeal with Azubike. She mentioned that whenever the men began telling her of their intentions, that was when they ran away from her. The same thing happened with all her other suitors. She tried going after them to ask them what the matter was, but they ran farther away. In the market one day, she overheard people discussing about her, saying that she was a witch and had the face of a monster. That was why any suitor who came for her hand in marriage ended up running away and abandoning her. They also said that was the reason her fiancé, Okenwa, abandoned her, because he saw her true face and realized that she was a beast. Some others called her Mami Water, who wanted to sacrifice the innocent men of their village. People kept pointing fingers at her and called her all sorts of despicable names while gossiping. Some of the traders also refused to sell to her because they saw her as bad luck. Obianuju didn't know where she had gone wrong. She was still that beautiful girl and she wished people saw it, but she was only called a monster whenever a man tried to approach her. Her friends advised that she needed to take her prayer life more seriously in order to fight against such evil, as it was not normal. So she kept praying and hoping that whatever was the cause of her problem stopped immediately. She began going to church more often, and even in the church, the villagers kept avoiding her. She cried and prayed fervently for months, but it looked like it was all in vain. While she was discussing with her friends one evening, she had an unexpected visitor, her ex-fiancé Okenwa. The three friends were shocked to see him. Obianuju had not set eyes on Okenwa since the day they had separated, so seeing him now gave her mixed feelings. She didn't know if she was to be happy, sad, or even angry. Okenwa said he wanted to speak to her in private. So when they were alone, he mentioned that he had heard all about her suitors running away from her as if they had seen a ghost. He claimed to have the solution to her problem, but he will only assist her on two conditions. First, she had to agree to marry him, and second, he would take her to the diabolical man to make her free of whatever was wrong with her. Obianuju was surprised. She asked Okenwa if he had a hand in what was happening to her, but he said no, that he didn't have a hand in it. But he was sure that the Baba he went to would have a solution to her problem. He convinced her that there was no way that prayers could solve her problem. Obianuju was ready to do almost anything to get rid of the monster chasing all her suitors away. Okenwa gave her time to think deeply about it and told her to get back to him if she had finally agreed. She was considering going back to Okenwa for help because she was desperate at the time. But after telling her friends about her conversation with him, they were both surprised that Okenwa was into fetish practices despite holding a prominent role in the church. They made her see that if Okenwa was really a good man as he claimed, he would not involve himself with evil, then pretend to the entire community that he worshipped God wholeheartedly. He was a deceitful man, so instead of helping her, he may put her in bigger trouble. They advised that it was best she stuck to her faith and kept believing in God for a miracle instead of soiling her hands in evil, then later regretting it. She was grateful to her friends for being true friends because if not for their intervention, she would probably be on her way to doom with Okenwa. One evening after church, Okenwa sighted Obianuju and ran after her to know her decision on what they discussed the other day. The pastor came out of the church, and on seeing Obianuju, he was surprised. He immediately told her that she had evil in her and had been possessed. Everyone was confused, including Obianuju. The pastor said that he was seeing the face of an ugly monster instead of her real face. She immediately agreed and told her pastor everything that she had been going through. The pastor held her hands and began praying for her. Even the other church members joined in, and in a short time, a full prayer session started and went on for over 10 minutes. All of a sudden, Okenwa started feeling uneasy. He couldn't hold it any longer as he had been overpowered. He confessed to everyone present that he was the one behind Obianuju's problems. When she had found out about the calabash pot in his house and called off their marriage, he told himself that if he won't be able to have her, no other man will. So he went to his native doctor to collect a charm and he planted it on her the day he hugged her, so that whenever a suitor came to ask for her hand in marriage, they would see a raging beast instead of her beautiful face. Everybody was dumbfounded, they couldn't believe it. He also confessed that it was the charm that kept him on top of business, and he was the one behind the downfall of so many other villagers. He mentioned all the atrocities he had done, and some of the villagers bundled him away. Obianuju felt something leave her, and she knew that she was free. She knew about Okenwa's fetish practices, but she never thought that he would use it to harm her. She was grateful to God and her pastor, and the villagers apologized to her for treating her like an outcast. Eventually, her suitors came running back to her, and soon after, she got married to a good and God-fearing man, and they lived happily ever after. The lesson to be learned from this story is always to be persistent in our prayers and never to give up on God, as His timing is always the best. We should also try to make proper inquiries about people, because you can never tell who is who. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and turn on your post notification to get notified when next I post a new video. Bye!